Hello and welcome to the Department of Homeland Security's Small Business Innovation Research Program's Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Awareness Training. I'm Connie Benish, the Outreach Manager for the DHS SBIR program, and this training is being provided to educate DHS SBIR applicants on how to avoid committing and minimizing the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse in our program. So let's go ahead and get started. The DHS Office of the Inspector General has the responsibility of investigating allegations of fraud, waste, and abuse. They perform and/or oversee audits, inspections, and investigative functions relating to programs, operations, and employees and contractors of DHS. On this slide, you'll see some examples of previously encountered SBIR issues as they relate to fraud, waste, and abuse. This includes proposal preparation, so instances of plagiarism, budget, money spent on unapproved items, small business information like falsifications or saying that there are physical offices when there are only virtual offices, or other exaggerated capabilities. The next three bullets you'll see we'll actually be talking about in the next few slides, but those include time and attendance, work performed by contractors, and principal investigator employment requirements. So let's talk about time and attendance. The principal investigator, or PI, and senior personnel must have the time available to perform the proposed research during the award period. As a rule, always mark down time and attendance appropriately. This may be self-evident, but there are instances where a principal investigator or senior personnel is noting 40 hours a week working on a project, but they also have a 40-hour-a-week job working as a professor at a college, and they likely aren't doing two full-time jobs at the same time. Additionally, applicants must provide information about all research to which the PI and other senior personnel either have committed time or plan to commit time. There are several reasons for this, but one of them is that the government should not be paying for double work. For instance, if you have a DHS contract, but you are proposing the same research project to the Department of Defense and you win that award, then you have the government paying double for the same project. By communicating with our team and the topic manager, this helps the government to use its funds for their intended purpose. Contracted work. This happens in two phases for our program. In phase one, 2/3 of the work must be performed by the primary contractor. In phase two, 1/2 of the work must be performed by the primary contractor. Please note that all subcontract work must be approved by the government, and university research lab work is not considered SBIR work and cannot be billed as SBIR-related research. PI's primary employment. So the principal investigator, or again, PI, their primary employment must be with the small business at the time of award. A PI cannot be employed full-time elsewhere. You also want to be very transparent about your PI. So if you're going to change the PI, or if the PI is merely a figurehead, but someone else is doing all of the work, that is fraud, waste, and abuse. We want the person who is awarded the contract to do the work, not serve as a pass-through for another person or company. Additionally, a change of PI requires advanced written notice. Types of liability. There are multiple outcomes to an OIG case if fraud, waste, and abuse is committed. This includes civil and/or criminal prosecution, termination of current contracts, and suspension and debarment. Let's talk first about civil prosecution under the False Claims Act, or FCA, and its relation to fraud of federal funds. Now, the FCA provides that any person who knowingly submits or causes to submit false claims to the government is liable for 3 times the government's damages, plus a penalty that is linked to inflation. It also allows for private parties to sue on behalf of the government. To put this in perspective, currently, a penalty for each false claim can range from up to $12,000 to $28,000, and there could be multiple penalties if there are multiple false claims per case. The damages for a claim can be tripled, so if the subject made $1 million in false claims, they could potentially have to pay back $3 million in damages plus penalties. False claims can range, but this does include falsities made on the SBIR proposal, the certification of current cost of pricing data, the request for initial payment, and the interim and final reports. Providing false statements to obtain an SBIR contract or false statements about work performed on the contract does violate several criminal laws, including but not limited to false statements, 18 U.S. Code 1001, theft of federal funds, 18 U.S. Code 641, and wire fraud, 18 U.S. Code 1343. Furthermore, using SBIR contract funds for your personal use is criminal conversion, 18 U.S. Code 641, and if not reported to the Internal Revenue Service as personal income, it is tax evasion, 18 U.S. Code 7201. Also, providing false statements to federal agents or destroying evidence is obstruction of justice, 18 U.S. Code 1505. Suspension and debarment. Suspension is a decision by an agency suspending official to temporarily render an entity or individual unable to receive or participate in federal contracts, subcontracts, assistance, loans, or other benefits pending completion of an investigation or legal proceedings. Debarment is a final decision by an agency debarring official to render an entity or individual unable to receive or participate in federal contracts, subcontracts, assistance, loans, or other benefits. Here's an example of fraud committed by an SBIR firm: Fractal Systems Incorporated and Smart Polymers Research Corporation. These Florida-based scientists fraudulently obtained $10.5 million of small business research awards from the federal government. They submitted proposals using stolen identities of real people to create false endorsements of and for proposed contracts. They also lied about facilities, costs, the principal investigator on some of the contracts, and certifications in the proposals. The DOJ action on this included a conviction of 15 felonies each: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and falsification of federal records and obstruction. The owners were sentenced to 15 and 13 years in federal prison and a judgment of $10.6 million and a restitution of $10.6 million were both rendered, meaning a total penalty of over $21 million. So what do you do if you have a question about fraud, waste, and abuse? First, if you don't know what to do, always ask questions. Also, encourage the PI and project personnel to disclose involvement with any other employers and disclose all current and pending support to other agencies. If you need to ask questions or report any suspected violations to an OIG representative or the DHS SBIR program office, you'll see a couple of places on this slide where you can report fraud, including to the stsbir.program@hq.dhs.gov email or the DHS OIG hotline internet submission form, for which the URL can be seen on your screen. Any reports of fraud, waste, or abuse should be reported promptly to either the DHS SBIR program office or directly to the DHS OIG hotline. Thank you so much for watching, and please let us know if you have any questions.